Hello everyone and welcome back to Music Ed Now. In today's video I'll be walking you through a full melody solution for question 1 on the 2025 Leaving Cert music paper. This melody is in G major, it's in 4/4 time and there is an Anacrusis. And just before we get started, this will be the last melody video this side of the summer, but if you would like access to all of my melody solutions for question 1 on the Leaving Cert composing paper from 1999 all the way through to 2025, then you can do that via the link in the description below. What you'll get is a PDF of all of these solutions, and you'll also get the MuseScore file with all of the solutions. So it's ready for any teachers out there to edit, but also ready to edit in terms of putting dynamic markings and all that kind of stuff onto it. So it could be a nice little activity booklet for teachers to use in class. And the last bit of housekeeping, the melody template that we'll be working from today and what I've been working from in all of these melody videos is available also from the link in the description below. What it has is a major melody template, a minor melody template, and then a sample answer for 2023, 2024, and 2025. So what we're going to do is kick off with step 1 here, and we're going to write a chord bank for the given key and a chord bank for the dominant key. The key today is G major because it has 1 sharp in it. And that means our given key is going to be G major. That's why there's a G major chord bank underneath me here on screen. So this is to complete step 1, right? Chord bank for the given key. And then what we also have is a chord bank for the dominant key. Whenever you see the word dominant in music, you should be thinking about the number 5. So if I'm in G major and I want to modulate, that is change key to the dominant key, all I have to do is count up 5 positions in that given key G major, and I'll get to the dominant key that I need. So G is 1, A is 2, B is 3, C is 4, D is 5. And that is why I have a chord bank here on screen underneath me as well for D major. So step 1 is already complete. We've got a chord bank for our given key, G major, and we've got a chord bank for our dominant key, D major. So let's move on to step 2, which is analyze the given phrase. We're going to harmonize it. We'll note any interesting melodic or rhythmic material. And then we're going to look at what to do when there is an anacrusis. And in today's melody, there is an anacrusis. So hopping back to our melody, this is what we're given in the first 4 bars in the 2025 question. Straight away, let's do the harmonizing. And you'll see that I have both chord banks here on the left-hand side as well to keep track with the theory. So for this first bar, I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's G major. We have a B there, we've got a D there, we've got a G there, and we've got a B there. So the majority of notes here are chord notes belonging to G. In this next bar, we've got A, D, so this is chord 5. Then we go back to what looks like chord 1, because I've got a B and a G here. Then we've got triadic movements descending, and that's just outlining the chord of 1 again. So I don't need to add in this chord, but I will anyway, just so we can see it. And then what we have is the chord of 4 with this C and E. Then we're going to end in bar 4 on an imperfect cadence, what it looks like, and you'll nearly always expect to see an imperfect cadence ending on chord 5 at the 4th bar of the given phrase. Now let's look at any interesting rhythmic and melodic material. The first thing I notice straight away is a rhythmic feature of this given phrase, and that is we have syncopation here. So if I zoom in a little bit, what we've got is a quaver, a single quaver on the downbeat of this bar, so on the 1, and then on the and of 1. So like literally a quaver later, we've got a long note. This crotchet happening on an offbeat, this is the and of 1, is what makes this syncopated. Let's have a listen to the phrase and you can hear this syncopation in action. It happens in bar 2 here, and it happens also at the end of bar 3. So let's note any other melodic features that we have here that we could use. We have this rising scale pattern that we could come back to use. We've got this descending arpeggio pattern, which is outlining the triad. These arpeggio patterns or these triadic patterns can be very useful for covering a wide range in a short space of time. So here we've traveled an octave in just 2 beats of music. Then we've got a few leaps here and there. So we've got this leap of a 6th in bar 1. We've got this rising leap of a 5th, or a 4th, I should say, in bar 2. So we might come to use some of that material. Nothing too deep needs to be done here on the analysis just yet, but it's just putting a marker on what aspects of this given phrase we can use. And then the last thing we're going to talk about in terms of our analysis here in the A phrase, the given phrase, is this anacrusis. So an anacrusis can confuse many people, but really it's a very straightforward idea. In our everyday language, I can say the following sentence. Today we're doing a melody question. Or I can say, so today we're doing a melody question. And that little so, when I said, so today we're doing a melody question, that's like a little lead into the main sentence. Today we're doing a melody question. So today we're doing a melody question. In music, we can have a similar idea. This little phrase here, the two quavers, are like a pickup into the first bar. So they don't count as a bar. Bar one actually happens here on the downbeat, on this B note. But the little pickup into that is our anacrusis. Sometimes it's a crotchet, sometimes it's two quavers, sometimes it's three quavers. The rhythm here can change, but in this case it was two quavers. Now what it means for us as music students who have to write using an anacrusis is that at the end of bar 4, we'll always be missing these two quavers from the end of that bar. And the reason is the first phrase, the A phrase, starts here and ends here at this crotchet. So what we need to do is start our phrase with the same rhythm, two quavers, but start it at the end of bar 4. So I'll do that now. So what I'm doing here is I'm going D, F sharp. I'm keeping these two notes as quavers because whatever I'm given in the anacrusis is what I'm going to use for my rhythm into each of the phrases. So we use the exact same rhythm. And then the reason why I'm choosing D and F sharp is that's part of chord 5. So I want to keep chord 5 intact in this bar 4. So I'm starting my phrase, my A1 phrase here with this pickup into the A1 phrase. And that's all you need to know about the anacrusis. It's just whatever rhythm we're given here, we add to the end of bar 4. So now with that analysis out of the way, we're now on to step 3 in our template, which is work out potential developments of opening material in A1 phrase and modulate. So in order to do this, I'm just going to scroll up here to the A1 modulating phrase that I've given you in the template. The A1 phrase is going to happen from bars 5 to 8. What it means to have an A1 phrase is that we're going to use material from the given phrase, develop it slightly, but make sure that it's in keeping with what was given to us. And then in bars 7 and 8, we're going to modulate to the dominant key. So what we're going to need is in bar 5, we're going to use chord 1 of the given key. So chord 1 of the given key is going to be G. Chord 6 of the given key is going to be E minor. So we're going to go G to E minor in these two bars. And then the reason why I have this bar 7 and 8 bracketed off is because we need to think about the dominant key for these two chords, this perfect cadence in the new key. So 5 to 1 in our dominant key today is going to be the chord of A major, 5 in the chord blank there below me, and landing on D major, chord 1 in the new key. So let's go back to our melody now and try to write some of this in. I'm going to put in my chords just to have in the background to keep me on the straight and narrow, but also as a rougher point, it might help you too. Then in bar 7 and 8, we need A major, landing on D major. And now I'm going to write in a melody that maps onto these. For bar 5, I'm going to use the same rhythm that's in bar... I'm going to use the same rhythm that's in bar 1, and I'm going to maybe use some of the same melodic ideas too. So we had a rising scale in bar 1. Let's try a descending scale in bar 5. The other reason why I'm starting here on the high G note is because there's continuity between my anacrusis from the last bar. So I've gone D, F sharp in the previous bar. This F sharp is the T, if we're talking about solfa, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, T, and it always wants to rise to do, like that. So that's why I'm starting on this higher G up here. So here I'm going to keep my dotted crotchet and quaver idea. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a G rising to a B. We had a G rising to a B in bar 1, but it's not an exact copy because now we're up the octave. So it's in keeping with what we were given, but changing it or developing it slightly. Now we're going to definitely use this syncopated pattern idea, but now mapping it to the chord of 6. So we've got G, G, E, which is in the chord. So in bar 2 we had B, G, A, and I'm just elaborating on that ever so slightly. Again, development doesn't mean reinvent the wheel. It just means to look for opportunities to make small edits and changes to develop the melody. And here we're developing rhythmically. And now, really importantly, what we need to do is make sure that we're using all of the notes in the chord of A major, which is going to introduce an accidental note. So the third of an A major chord is C sharp. If you don't believe me, check the chord bank over to the left. The fifth chord in D major has an A, a C sharp, and an E in it. This third of the A major chord is a C sharp, and it's the difference between the key of G major and D major. There's no C sharp. C is natural in G major, and C is sharp in D major. And we have to introduce this accidental somewhere along the way just to let the ear know that we've changed key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this descending arpeggio idea or triadic idea, and we've just come from a B note in the previous bar, so we can actually introduce our C sharp straight away. And I'm noticing something that I can do here in the second half of the bar. So I've got C sharp, A, E, A. When I write this note here, just be aware that this is also C sharp because the sharp carries for the whole bar. And in our given phrase, we were given C natural, D, E with this syncopation again, single quaver, crotchet, quaver. What I'm going to do is, instead of having C natural, D, E, I'm now up the octave and I have C sharp, D, E. So it's very in keeping with what we're given, but developing it by being up an octave and also by using now the notes belonging to D major, not G major. And then lastly, we just need to finish out this phrase. So we'll use the same rhythm that we were given before and change it slightly. So I've used this idea of D and it leaps up and then there's falling stepwise movement. D, it leaps up and there's falling stepwise movement. And then our next phrase is going to kick off with two quavers here at the end of bar 4. So let's listen to this phrase now. I'm going to remove the chords because I think they don't let you hear what the melody is doing all by itself. So we play from, remember, we have to play this phrase from the fourth beat of bar 4 because that's where the phrase actually begins. I'm just noticing that we can keep this repeated move over the bar line if we want. This repeated note here is absolutely fine, but it might actually sound nicer with a little bit of stepwise movement. And sometimes after doing your first draft, you might come back and go, oh, actually there's an opportunity here for maybe some stepwise movement for more melodic material. Something might pop into your head that you hear on the day in your head, of course. But yeah, this feel free always to have license to change or tweak things after committing to maybe one phrase. Come back and revise it at the end. So that's what we have so far. We're going to now kick on to our B phrase. And just before we do, I want to go back to our template and look at what's involved here for our B phrase. So in our template, you'll see the B phrases here. And what we have is we're going to make a pattern in bars 9 and 10. And then we're doing a sequence of that pattern in bars 11 and 12. We have to begin on the third of the given key. So the given key in this case is going to be G major. So the third of the given key is going to be G is 1, A is 2, B is 3. So whatever else happens in this B phrase, we know we're beginning on the note B. Bar 9 is going to be mapped to the chord of 1 in the given key. That's G major. Bar 10 is going to be mapped to chord 4 in the given key. And then what we need to do is copy and paste bars 9 and 10 over to bars 11 and 12 and just shift it up one step. So this is what I like to say about the B phrase. You're getting 4 bars for the price of 2. If you do a good bar 9 and 10, you'll get a good bar 11 and 12. So let me show you that in action now. So again, we have to kick off this B phrase with quavers for our Anacrusis into the B phrase, or upbeat or pick up into the B phrase. And again, we're going to try and keep a chord of 5. Now I'm going to actually show you something a little bit more advanced here with the Anacrusis. So here I've chosen the notes C and A, and this kind of makes this chord D7 because the 7th of our 5/7 chord is going to be C. The note is C, and this whole bar now kind of goes D, D7, and then into our B phrase. What it also does melodically though is if I use C and A, the ear has a really strong urge then to hear the following note, B. So you're leading the ear here. And I know my bar 9 is going to kick off from the note B because that's the third degree of our given key. So that's just a bit more of an advanced thing. You could just do something simpler, like a D and A. Like that is absolutely fine. And then you avoid using that C if the 5/7 is confusing you. The one thing to note though is if I use F sharp, for example, the F sharp to B is going to sound odd because the leading note, the F sharp here, expects to rise to G. So what you want to do is make sure that this is coming from either A or D, the root or the fifth of the chord. Let me go back here and I'll use my 7 idea. For this B phrase, what we're trying to do is jigsaw together a couple of different ideas from the opening so that it sounds new and fresh. So I'm going to do something like this. So where am I getting this idea from? Well, we had triadic movement here in bar 3 that just descended. This is triadic movement, but it's just doing it a different way. And then I'm going to definitely keep this syncopation idea. The syncopation happened in bar 2. I'm introducing it here in the first bar of this B phrase. So something slightly different, but also in keeping with the melody we were given. So quaver. Like that. So all of this bar is going along with chord of 1 in the key. What we said was we need chord 4 here for bar 10. And what I'm going to do is keep quaver movement here. So I've got rising C, chord note, passing note, chord note, chord note, chord note. And then this descending scale pattern idea is actually stolen from my A1 phrase in a way. And that's another thing I want to talk about. If you've written an A1 phrase, the B phrase can maybe use material from what you've already written in. So this is still an inversion of this first part of our given phrase. So you can see how the B phrase is a bit of a juxtaposing or taking bits from different areas and putting them together. And that way you keep a certain glue of the piece the whole way through, but it's also fresh enough that it sounds different because they're in different places in the phrase. Now that we've done the hard work of these bars 9 and 10, all we need to do is copy and paste over to bars 11 and 12. Obviously, on the day of your exam, you can't actually copy and paste. I'm in MuseScore here, so it's very easy to do that. And what you'll do is you'll manually copy that across, but you don't copy it directly across, you copy it shifted up one position. So B, G, D, B becomes C, A, E, C. And you can hear it straight away, the sequence. Like that. This mathematically, and without having to do any thinking, will give you the chord of 2 to 5 in the key. And that's why I say it's getting 4 bars for the price of 2. Now what we'll want to do is this second half of the bar, we know that we have our Anacrusis coming up. So what we actually want to do is change the rhythm here to be more in keeping with what we were given at the end of each of these phrases. So a longer note to finish things off. And then we'll kick off our A2 phrase from the 4th beat using an Anacrusis, 2 quavers into that A2 phrase. And now we're on to step 5. Write the A2 phrase looking for opportunities to develop the opening material. And if we scroll up a little bit, you'll see the A2 phrase is very simple. We're doing chord 1 on bar 13, chord 2 on bar 14, and then a perfect cadence 5 to 1 in our given key from bars 15 to 16. Again, looking for little points of development or changes or tweaks as we go. So I'm going to keep the upbeat, the Anacrusis, into the A2 phrase. I'm going to keep that as being part of chord 5 in the key. And we're going to go F sharp, D. And that F sharp to D, this F sharp is going to the ear is going to track that. So we will need to resolve this to starting on G here in this bar. And just as we had in the opening bar, we had rising scale pattern. I think I'm going to use that exact idea. So we're not inverting this time. The difference being here that we had a B, C, D, E in the opening. And now we've just have a scale idea rising in 4 notes, but this time we're from a different position of the scale. And this also helps us to expand the range of the overall melody because we're getting up to 2 ledger lines here. I'm going to invert the second half of bar 1 this time, up the octave. Invert means to flip upside down. So instead of going G to B, I'm going B to G, up the octave. Very much in keeping with what we were given in our opening phrase. And it also is very much mapped to chord 1. And then we need chord 2. I might as well put all the chords in while I'm here. Then D is chord 5 and G is chord 1. We're going to definitely keep our syncopated idea from the opening. It's a very strong and distinct feature of this given melody, so it makes sense to keep it here. But mapping it obviously this time to A minor, not to D. As we had in bar 3 of the given phrase, we have this descending arpeggio movement or descending triadic movement. We're going to keep things very similar here. We're going to go from F sharp. Why F sharp? Well, we just had a G in the previous bar, and this follows down the scale pattern. Like this. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking the exact same idea we had in the end of bar 3 and just mapping it to chord 5, where we have D and F sharp being our chord notes. This is an accented passing note because it's emphasized through the syncopation. And then we're going to obviously finish on our long tonic note. And then the last thing I need to say about this bar 16 is the reason why there's only 3 beats in this bar is to make a balancing of the overall melody. Whatever you are given, if you're given an Anacrusis, whatever the note values are, so it adds up, 2 quavers adds up to a beat, that's what is going to be missing or subtracted from the last bar. So like I said before, sometimes an Anacrusis is 2 quavers, sometimes it's a crotchet, sometimes it's a minim. Whatever it is, you're going to subtract from the overall signature. If it's 3 quavers, this last bar is going to be missing the value of 3 quavers at the end. In this case, we're missing 2 quavers, so my long note value is going to be a dotted minim for 3 beats, and I don't need to put in a crotchet rest or anything like that. This final bar is expected to be 1 note short because there's a balancing between this Anacrusis and the final bar. So let's now have a listen to this entire melody. Now all that's left is step 6, and that's to add suitable phrasing and dynamic marks. We're going to keep it simple. We'll do slur marks on stepwise movement. We'll do louder dynamics for a high register and anything else that makes musical common sense. So we want whatever we do in terms of our dynamics and phrasing just has to make musical sense. It's not about adding a million dynamic marks. It's not about adding arbitrary slur marks. It's where would a musician usually play those types of things. So the first thing I'm going to do is add in my phrase marks. With an Anacrusis melody, the phrase mark has to go after, in between the last beat of the phrase and the Anacrusis for the next phrase. So let me just show you this first. I'll put it in and then explain afterwards. So for phrase marks, I'm using this little comma idea. You can use the arch over the whole phrase if you want, and if you're doing that on Anacrusis, you have to start the arch there and finish it here, so it looks something like this. I find that can be a bit messy on the exam paper, so instead I opt for these comma marks instead. So you'll notice that it's in between beat 3 where the phrase ends and just before the pickup into our A1 phrase. So that's very important that it's placed there, particularly when there's an Anacrusis. So I'm going to do the same thing now for my A1 phrase. The phrase starts here, it ends here. And then for my B phrase, it starts here and ends here. So again, I'll just put another comma just after that one. So our double bar line takes care of the end of bar 16. Now let's look at some opportunities to introduce slur marks. So I've got this rising scale pattern. I'm going to put a slur in here. This arpeggio movement would be nice slurred. I feel like these syncopation moments, they would be better played as separate notes. We have another one there. I might actually slur both of these because this would sound nice, very fluid over the bar line. Here, this whole bar. So you're getting the idea, just nice and simple. So there's our slur marks, and then finally I'll stick in some dynamic markings. Let's start MF. Why don't we do a little growth in the end of this phrase? A little diminuendo, or a gradual quietening down here, and we'll start the B phrase with mezzo piano, so moderately quiet, and then let's grow throughout this whole one so that we can finish with a big finale. And that's your slur dynamic marks, just bringing the melody to life. Make sure that these phrase marks are in there. It's so easy to forget them, but you do need them. So that's an entire walkthrough of question 1 on the 2025 Leaving Cert paper. I hope this video has helped you in revising for the exam. If you're doing your exam in a couple of weeks' time, the very best of luck. Please do consider hitting subscribe if you're new here. Every subscriber is greatly appreciated. This has been David Kennedy with Music Ed Now, and I'll see you in the next video.